Hi, I'm Dr. Paul. Welcome back to Live on Purpose TV. Today, how to improve your marriage in a few short minutes. As a psychologist, I've had a lot of really cool opportunities. One of the things that I enjoy the most is working with couples and marriages. So the question comes up all the time, how do I improve my marriage? We've got a little video here where we should be able to handle that whole thing in just a few minutes, right? There's probably more to it than that. But let me boil it down to a few things that I've noticed in my 23 years of clinical experience and almost 30 years of being married. So I'll add that to the mix too. And by the way, in saying that, I have the best marriage I know of. I have the best one. I choose to see it that way. And that serves me well. Is it a choice how you see your marriage? Yes, it is. Here's the first concept, and this is a paradox. See if you can wrap your head around this. Paradoxes are seeming contradictions. It's something that doesn't seem like it could be true, but it absolutely is. I'm going to introduce this paradox with a little story about my son who several years ago, as a young adult, he wanted to buy a car. He didn't have any significant work history at that point. He didn't have any money. He didn't have a credit score. Nothing yet. And as a young adult, he wanted to get into this car. Now, it was only, I think, a $3,000 loan. So I took him down to the local credit union, not too far from my office here. And we sat down with a loan officer, and this loan officer was taking my son's information and typing it all into her computer. And she got this dark look on her face as she turned to my son and she said, "I'm really sorry. You don't qualify for this loan." Big surprise, right? We kind of knew that he wasn't in a position to qualify. So I threw my hat in the ring. I said, "How about if I co-sign on that loan with my son? How does that work for you?" And this loan officer gets excited and says, "Oh, sir, that would be awesome." So she starts to enter my information. She gets an even darker look on her face as she looks at me and she says, "Sir, that makes it worse." Okay, no, I was kind of playing with her. I'm a psychologist. I do this sometimes. I knew that my credit was whacked. I had been through some, well, read my book. The first chapter of my book is Lightning Strikes. It's about a time in my life when I went through some economic challenges that left me in a position where I didn't qualify for the loan either. That was kind of funny to me, but I was ready for her, and I presented a third option. I pulled $3,000 out of my own pocket. I set it on the desk in front of her, and I said, "How about if I lend you the $3,000, you lend it to my son, and then you let me co-sign on the note. How would that work for you?" She brightens up immediately, and she says, "Oh, sir, we could give you really good rates on that." Thank you for the good rates on my own money. Right? It's called a secured loan. The bank is not taking any risk at all. I'm assuming all of it. But I had reasons for doing that because I wanted to help myself and my son to build up some credit. So you see where I was coming from on that. Here's what I learned. You can get the loan as soon as you prove that you don't need it. Is this true in the world of finance? That matches my experience. You can get the loan as soon as you prove that you don't need it. Now let's shift back to marriage for a minute. Can you improve your marriage? Can you upgrade this thing? Can you make it better than it is? Absolutely. And you're most likely to improve your marriage as soon as you realize you don't need to. Okay, now that's going to strike some of you different than others. I had a couple on my couch here not too long ago. They're telling me about their marriage, everything that's going wrong and how terrible and awful it is. And they had already talked to an attorney about divorce. I mean, it was a mess, right? And I jumped in with one of my psychologist questions. And all of my questions are loaded, by the way, so just watch out if I ever ask you a question. And I said to them, "How's your marriage?" She looks at me like I haven't been paying attention. "Doc, are you listening to me?" Do you remember I shared a model? In another video, I shared this model. In fact, you can link to that video. We'll put it in the description here. I shared this model of evaluation and creation. What I'm talking about is two different processes in the mind. We do evaluation of our current circumstances, and then we create what's coming. My whole point here is that you can make an upgrade to your marriage. And it best starts in evaluation mode by acknowledging that your marriage is already good. It is good. And I can share stories with people that will help them to see that their marriage is good. For example, I had a couple I was working with. I just realized they might be watching this video. Oh well, I'll tell anyway. It's confidential. I had a couple I was working with where he had an affair. This happens, right? With her mother. I know, don't think about that too much. How you feeling about your own marriage right about now? Right? Another one where she fired a .45 caliber handgun at him. Another one where he hired a hitman to kill her. You can't shock me. Honestly, I've been in practice for 23 years. I've heard some of the darndest crap you can imagine. How does your own marriage seem when you compare it to those? See, it goes back to the model that we talked about with evaluation and creation. You're always judging this thing. Just notice that you're judging it in a certain way. Why? Because that sets up the energy for what we're going to do to improve it. Think about how you feel when your spouse is constantly telling you how bad this is. How's your spouse likely to feel if you're constantly telling your spouse how bad this is? What changes if we shift that perception, that evaluation choice, to how good this is and all of the reasons that it is? So here's the first strategy that you can use to improve your marriage, and it ties right into this paradox. You realize and acknowledge and catalog and document the ways that it is already good, full, rich, blessed. Pick your adjective. Go there. And here's how you can do it. Practice a simple gratitude exercise. For each of the next 5 days, come up with 25 things for which you are sincerely grateful. And these can be anything. They can be hot water, indoor plumbing, puppies and rainbows. Anything that you're grateful for, you can put it on the list. Now, half, at least half, that's 13 if you're doing the math, at least half of your list every day is about your spouse or your marriage. Your spouse or your marriage. You come up with things that you're sincerely grateful for. Now, if you're struggling in your marriage, it's because you're focusing on some things that you're not happy about. I'm asking you to shift gears, to shift direction, to steer this in a direction that allows you to see what's good already. That will power up your mind for creating an upgrade. So the paradox is you can have the upgrade. And you're more likely to have that upgrade as soon as you realize you don't need it. That it is already good. Okay, so a gratitude exercise. 5 days, you come up with 25 things for which you're grateful. 12 of those can be about anything in your life that's awesome. The other 13 have to be about your spouse or your marriage. And don't repeat anything on tomorrow's list that's on today's list. This will immediately improve your marriage. And it's interesting that it didn't even change anything except your focus. You try that. That is a relationship-saving activity. Give it a try. Okay, one more. For the same 5 days, you intentionally give a social gift to your spouse on each of those 5 days. You intentionally give a social gift to your spouse. Here's what I mean by social gifts. I'm referring to a book by Dr. Anne Demaray, who wrote a book called First Impressions. And she is the one that identified these 4 social gifts. So let's use Dr. Demaray's 4 social gifts. You can pick any one of these to give to your spouse every day intentionally for 5 days. The first one is appreciation. This one shouldn't be too hard because you're already doing the gratitude list. So from your gratitude list, you might choose one or more of the things that you're grateful for related to your spouse or your marriage and give that to your spouse as a social gift. It is simply expressing appreciation. And be specific. Honey, thank you for whatever it is that you picked from your list. Sweetheart, I really appreciate that you give them something from your list. It's a social gift. Okay, that's 1. Appreciation. 2. Connection. Connection is something that we have in common. With your spouse, you can pick a common interest, for example. If you share a common interest, the social gift for that day might be something like bringing home a favorite meal from that restaurant that you both love. It might be offering to share a television program that you both enjoy. So that's the connection piece. It's common ground. The third social gift is elevation. Elevation is just what it sounds like. You know, an elevator lifts people. So this is something that's intended to lift the mood or the spirits of another person. Elevation. Sometimes it takes the form of humor, laughing, a smile could be this social gift. But I don't want you to get off easy. So don't just flash a quick little smile. I mean a genuine, elevating smile or humor or fun. That's elevation. And then the fourth social gift is enlightenment. Enlightenment is increasing their fund of knowledge or information. So you want to tell them something or give them access to some information that they didn't have before. It could be in the form of sharing this video with your spouse. That would be enlightenment. It could be that you just say, hey, did you know? And then you give them some factoid, you know, something that you heard on the radio or in a podcast or something. It's increasing their fund of information. Okay, so we got 4 social gifts: appreciation, connection, elevation, and enlightenment. So each of those 5 days that you're doing your gratitude list, also intentionally give one of those social gifts on purpose to your spouse. How do you improve your marriage? You can do that. Paradox is that you're most likely to improve your marriage when you realize you don't have to, that what you have is already good and rich and full and amazing and awesome. Find the ways that it is, and it immediately improves for you. That also changes the energy for your spouse, who is probably craving a sense that you are pleased with them and with the situation. You know, I think the most amazing feeling happens when another person says, my life is better because you're in it. Let's see if we can give that kind of a social gift to our spouse. And then we can start to practice the things that will immediately improve our relationship. We'll address some other topics in other videos too, like communication and how to work together and how to solve problems creatively. There's all kinds of resources available. Let's start with this one, where you get to practice that gratitude and give some of those social gifts. Let's see what happens in just a few days. So is your marriage better already? I hope it is. Share this episode with someone that you think would benefit.